Welcome to Election Watch 2024 on the 28th of September. One day, we should be able to say one day after voting, but we know voting extended into this very day. So several hours, maybe just a few hours after the end of voting. I believe some people voted as late as 6 a.m. Table.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just coming from a conference call with some of our reporters who are in the regions, and they're telling us that places like Matutura Secondary School in Swakopmund, voting is still continuing as we speak. Then there's a similar situation in Okakarara also, and parts of Kunene region. There are currently voting still going on, especially where ballot papers had been. Remember there were people who went for 4 hours without ballot papers,
yes.
And they had to reorganize all these things. And people stayed there and said, no, you had to repay me for my 4 hours that I've been waiting.
4 hours, yes.
Yeah,
so they waited still, just to make sure that their vote still gets counted. And speaking of the ballot papers, in the midst of the ruckus, this was the letter that was dished out by the Electoral Commission following shortage of ballot papers observed in some of the constituencies across the country. The communique serves to notify that all polling stations are to remain open after 9 p.m. Now, the arrangement is necessary to enable returning officers to make necessary arrangements with regards to borrowing the ballot papers from polling teams in excess of ballot papers and attend to eligible voters already in the queue. This was the communique from the Electoral Commission of Namibia. Toivo, what does it mean to borrow ballot papers?
Yeah, so what happens, and Matthias was explaining it quite well last night, to say that because it's not a very straightforward process where you just say, oh, we ran out of ballot papers. You just pick and then you take them to another station, because they are numbered. They are they have these security details that have to be punched into systems and the database before they are then moved to another thing. That's why, for example, it's a very delicate exercise if it was really handled by people who knew what they were doing. But essentially, that is what it means, that what is originally allocated to you in the database with all the security details is that. And if you then have to procure extra numbers, then you have to restart that process again at the ECN itself, punch in those numbers, enter them, and they say, these are the extra 50 ballots that went to Station B, meant by this officer and whatnot.
I mean, doesn't that open up for some potential discrepancies? Because as you said, it's a very delicate process. We're saying that this went here, but it came back. I mean, there's a lot that can happen in between there. And I just feel like a statement like that could have clarified more to the ordinary Namibian in layman's terms. Just saying borrowing ballots like that, the way that lands on our ears and, of course, our eyes is very questionable, without a doubt. Now, one of our correspondents who was in the Rongo region up until late last night was Irene Marie van der Walt. This was her last report from there.
Not yet over, far from over, long lines at so many of the polling stations, but an enduring spirit from voters in Swakopmund and Arandas, a lot of them spending 8, 10, 12 hours in lines to vote, especially in areas like DRC and Matutura. There were some fights about mothers with children not being given a first courtesy to go vote, but as one of the presiding officers at one of these polling stations behind me explained, that one child suddenly gets 10 mothers throughout the course of the day. So Swakopmund is now growing windy, and that tells us it's about nighttime in Swakopmund. But as you can see, there are still rows. There's still a very long row outside waiting to cast their vote. So an absolute dedication from Swakopmunders and the people of Arandas to cast their votes, make sure their voices are heard. Tablets and technical issues related to them have been problems throughout at many of the polling stations, although There are a couple polling stations who have earned themselves the very high regards of voters who have decided to go vote there. For example, Meduletu, for example, one of the polling stations here behind me in Matatura, they have earned themselves compliments, and that is very endearing to see and very good to see. So I think high spirits from a couple of very tired Swakopmunders at the moment, but they are determined to make sure that their voices are heard when those votes are counted.
Irene Marie van der Walt in the Rongo regions, and she will actually be bringing us an update by 9 a.m. about the continual voting that is still happening in Swakopmund. She said at the beginning of her video that it is far from over, and she hit that on the head. That was absolutely true. Now, some concerns, the main concern we've had has been communication from ECN. However, we would like to let our audience know that the ECN does have an app. It does have an application. Go to their website, download the ECN app. That way, should any information flow from that side, you get it immediately. But I understand they called a press conference this morning, Tavo.
Yeah, this... No, not a press conference.
No, it's not a press conference, an engagement.
Yeah, with political parties. At 12 o'clock, they'll be meeting, because every political party, and we'll be showing that to our viewers just in a moment, what political parties have said about the processes last night. So they have now convened a meeting for 12 o'clock with political parties, where they are going to talk about whatever concerns have been raised. In terms of communication, last night, ECN called a press conference, then they called it off, and then only to speak to MBC alone.
Yes.
As if they think that the privately owned media would put them to the sword. I mean, the impression is always that the state media will be lenient and they just listen and you talk. They don't probe, which is not also true. Sometimes they do. But it's just suspicious. That's why I tweeted last night. I said, this is not Zimbabwe, where you just choose the Herald newspaper to speak to government. This is a government thing. It's not a partisan.
I have to say, Toivo, it is in Zimbabwe. But as someone who's spent a considerable amount of time in Zimbabwe, there's reason to worry, because it's starting to feel like it.
Yes.
And just with regards to how this process has been handled. Now, Jobam Panda tweeted, as he does, about last night. I'm certainly hoping there'll be no expletives in this. Please forgive us if they're there. But he said that this was at 8 minutes after 1 a.m. ECN PF, SWAPO PF, as he calls them, have just sunk our elections. What is the purpose of granting a directive to keep voting stations open when voters have already left? Some stations received instructions after voters were already sent away. For those that remained, it's either the ballots are still not there or the ballot boxes are full, with presiding officers saying they can't proceed with voting. At several voting stations, electricity went off just after 9 p.m. At some stations where counting started, 2 different results of the National Assembly were produced. He says this has not happened in 34 years. When liberation movements start losing power, they start manufacturing chaos to survive. I think he ends that with a little push towards his own agenda, fair and fine. But look, the concerns are absolutely valid without a doubt. There hasn't been communication. I checked the ECN Facebook page. The last update on the Facebook page was 20 hours ago. For context, in the last 20 hours, so much has happened. Even they had an update, and they didn't share that update to Facebook. Even the update that they have, that they did have with the state broadcaster, they did not share that to Facebook. So on Twitter, it's even over a day where they haven't said anything with regards to what is transpiring, and that has been part of the reason people are asking questions, because no one cares to have the ECN as an enemy, and perhaps they're not aware of that. No one cares about that. What people care about is their ballot echoing their voice.
I mean, you see, last night when ECN issued that letter, that directive to their officials, and they said, people may be allowed at stations beyond 9 o'clock. I mean, up to now, as you and I sit here, we do not know until what time this is allowed.
Yes.
So if somebody rocked up this morning, are they still allowed? Or why don't you say we give you an extension until this particular hour to still accept new arrivals?
Yes.
At least. So it just, I don't understand what is happening there. And I hope today, I know that PDM had a press conference very late last night around 10 o'clock. I am not privy to what transpired there. I think later Matthias Haufiko will give us a brief because he attended that press conference. But there's really massive legitimate concerns about ballot papers running out. There was a very disturbing incident last night in a village called Ngoi village in Oshikoto region. So the residents of that village, and it's a very, very prominent village in the north, people like lawyer Sisana Manje are from that village. It doesn't matter, but I'm just saying it's really a very prominent village in the north. They were told that an ECN mobile team will arrive in Ngoi village for people to vote. So people waited the entire day in Ngoi village to vote. Very late yesterday, they were told the mobile team can no longer make it. Imagine you've waited for 5 years to vote for your candidate and your party, the party of your choice. You've been assured to stay put the entire day. You could have gone elsewhere.
Yes.
Drove to Ondangwa, drove to Omthia to vote. They were told, stay put, the mobile team will come. They were told very late, the mobile team is no longer coming. That was the last update I had last night. Not sure what transpired in the end.
There's almost no way of not looking at that as a subversion of democracy. I mean, that is gross negligence, but I don't know if I can call it negligence because they were aware and they essentially did not keep their word, did not adhere to their mandated duty. Yes. You know, and the people were waiting to vote for their political parties, waiting to vote for their candidates, but more importantly, waiting to vote for the state in which they want their country to be governed. Essentially waiting to vote for the direction they want their lives to go. You know, and whether they want to extend the status quo, whether they feel like changing that, their vote was effectively silenced in that manner.
You see the danger with what is happening is that people think that this is just a logistical thing.
No.
It influences election results. Let's give an example, for example, of Okakarara, which is a Nudo stronghold. Nudo is the party there in Okakarara. I don't know what happened in Okakarara and what didn't happen. I'm just using it as an example. If you do not deliver ballot papers, enough ballot papers in Okakarara, it affects Nudo's overall performance in this election. The northern regions where some of these things have happened, the northern regions are SWAPO base. Stronghold. And SWAPO is counting particularly on the northern regions to deliver them because the party has been chased out of Windhoek, it has been chased out of all the major centers. Yes. So they are relying on that rural vote, same as the Kavango regions.
Yes.
So if you have shortage there, that party is going to be in trouble. This morning, our colleague Ogeto Greg, who is in the south, he said there's not. He's in Karas region. He says there's not a single incident of ballot paper shortage in that part of the region.
I'm glad you mentioned that because we actually do have a video from our Ogeto Greg as of this morning in Hardap. Let's have a look.
Good morning, Namibia. Good morning. Good morning. Today is the 28th of November. It's about 10 to 7 in the morning. I'm here in Marintal, here by Dani Joubert School Hall, which today will be the coalition center where the ECN officials are counting yesterday's vote. The nation voted for our next president and the parliamentarians who will represent us the next 4 years. Here in Hardap, the regional electoral officer, Mr. Willem Oirap, said that none of the polling stations needed to open after 9. They did ensure that everybody who stood in line at 9 o'clock in the evening last night was helped. Some polling stations were still open, I hear from other sources, at least until midnight, to deal with all of those people, as many people started arriving in the evening once the sun set and it got a little bit less hot. out here in Marintal. Mr. Oirap also said that there was no significant shortage of ballot papers here in the Hardap region. When shortages were experienced, they were able to get more ballot papers from nearby polling stations in less than 20 minutes, so there was no significant delays or shortages which could have caused anybody not to get the opportunity to vote. Today, here behind me at the collation station, presiding officers and returning officers from polling stations all over the region will convene. Currently, counting is happening all over Hardap region at different polling stations, and after that, materials will be returned here. After the counting is completed here, Mr. Oirap said that Hardap region will also get in touch again with the ECN headquarters in Windhoek to proceed with the normal day after proceedings. But everything is in order. The situation is very calm. It's a quiet early morning in Marintal, and we wish all of Namibia a very same quiet and relaxed day today. Thank you very much. Ogito Greg reporting from Marintal in Hardap.
So that was Ogito Greg from the Hardap region, that particular polling station, managing to mitigate their situation. But the real issue in this entire election is a sense of inconsistency, a sense of disorganization. And for a lot of people, that's enough for a sense of subversion of democracy to be present, to be at the forefront of people's minds. So we are waiting for this update from the ECN, who has prioritized, by the way, calling the political parties to the table before communicating to the citizens at large.
But that is also wrong, because people are in a state of confusion right now. The real owners of this election are not political parties. Political parties are only vehicles that are being used to facilitate all these things. But the owners of this process are the people of Namibia. And they ought to be the #1 priority for ECN. And what I had expected was to say, a very early briefing already, put out a statement, voting is continuing in these areas, or whatever is happening right now, because we are in a state of confusion right now.
Yes, this is from the IPC page, if I'm not mistaken, saying ECN must apologize to the Namibian people. For real, we can't believe this. What a shame. That is comments from IPC in their stories over there, just sharing the sentiment that a lot of people have had. Of course, this is an IPC individual, sharing their personal sentiments with regards to how everything is transpiring. But it speaks to what we were saying right now, because we just said that, why are you not communicating to the civilians? If there's to be a real issue with regards to the results of this election, no civilian is waiting for Swatboy, Menetumbo, Itula, Amupanda. That's no one's waiting for them. They will deal with the situation directly as civilians. So what do you think is the reason for what seems to be a buffer constantly being created between the ECN and the citizens of Namibia with regards to the flow of information?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's advising ECN. I don't know because like I was saying to you last night, silence creates a lot of conspiracies, even where they do not exist. What we ought to have, late last night, the Swapo Party Youth League also issued a statement.
Yes. Let's pull that up. Cool. The Swapo Party Youth League statement. Sorry, this is one of the comments which we're going to circle back to with regards to voting. Yeah. But let's just pull up. This was the Swapo Youth League statement, which was delivered last night. And a lot of people had been speaking as if Swapo had, no piece in this pie. But what they were essentially saying was the Swapo Party Youth League expresses its deep disappointment in the Electoral Commission of Namibia regarding the ongoing challenges at polling stations. The shortage of ballot papers has resulted in many voters waiting in long queues without sufficient communication or support from ECN officials. We urge the ECN to publicly address these concerns and provide clear information to the Namibian nation moving forward. It is is imperative that the ECN upholds the integrity of the electoral process and ensures transparency to restore public trust. Given the current situation with ballot shortages at numerous polling stations, we strongly call on the ECN to extend the voting period to accommodate all eligible voters to allow them to exercise their democratic right. And it again, it is an echo of what the other political parties have been saying, and for folks who had sort of divorced SWAPO from media accountability from this process, are starting to realize that this is a national issue right now. Has the president said anything?
The last sentiment that I heard from the presidency is actually the president praising, using the specific word, smooth process. Of all words in the vocabulary, smooth is the one that the presidency found. There's nothing smooth about this election, even in polling stations where things have seemingly gone well. The word smooth couldn't still qualify. So it is anything but smooth. And people were saying, for example, that the president must because he's the only one allowed to extend the voting. If you needed to add another day, for example, it's only him who could do that. And people were actually calling him to do that, calling upon him to do that. If that was the call from the public, how does it become then a smooth process? It's anything but that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Look, if we're saying just on average, looking at all of this, there's no way, just studying all of this, that it could be considered smooth. And then it begs the question, was he talking to us or talking to the international community?
Exactly.
Do you get my point? Because
Yes.
is he already, figuring out, doing the national quote-unquote PR? Because you know that once your elections are brought to disrepute internationally, you're going to be answering a whole lot more calls than you would like to answer. Was that perhaps a statement to ward off any curious eyes, any folks who might be feeling like how we're feeling, that this process has not been conducted smoothly? Yeah,
I think, and that is also the problem with our leaders. We are happy to appease these foreign eyes, whoever is watching. We want to appease them, but the people that you ought to appease, your priority is your Namibian people. So whatever the president says, how he pronounces himself on this election, it has to be to the appeasement or lack thereof of the Namibian people.
And reflective of the situation on the ground.
It happens a lot where you hear all these nice speeches abroad, and when you compare what you heard and what you see on a daily basis, it's a complete picture that you have here. And leaders must really transform from that kind of attitude. It's bad.
Yes, without a doubt. And I mean, in contrast to what the president said, we already flighted this press conference from LPM, but I want us to bring up the press conference from LPM again, just to expose at least the contrast in opinions with regards to this election from what the president said and how the other parties are taking it.
This is not politics. You are the journalists. You have videos. You have heard the complaints. So I'll tell you the way forward. I think we will have to go to court because we can't continue like this. We have asked ECN to extend the voting hours until tomorrow, 2 o'clock. But come to think of it, is it sufficient? Is it enough? But that is the first step in the right direction. There should be extension. At least we need to talk about this issue. So countrywide, 3 o'clock this afternoon, Origas had ballot papers only at 3 polling stations out of the 7. Half an hour thereafter, after I got that information, I was informed out of the 3 that remained, 1 polling station ran out of
the ballot papers.
Up until now, Origas is only limping on 2 polling stations out of the 7, and it's serious. I don't know how bad it can get. I don't know if there's another level of being bad beyond this. So we are calling ECN to extend the voting hours. They must make that recommendation immediately to the president so that the voting hours can be extended. In the meantime, they should call an urgent PLC meeting to address this matter. Where are the ballot papers?
That is the LPM. Certainly nothing smooth about that press conference, but not as Sopo didn't say a single word, but just from his expression, you could tell the frustration. The president voted at 8 a.m. around about yesterday. The process was smooth for him. Alfredo Hengari went to the front of the queue at the airport. The process was smooth for him. For other Namibians, it looked like this. Now, that's not necessarily reflective of every single police station, but it is reflective of the simple fact that this was not a smooth process. Not smooth.
You saw the young lady that being pulled so violently by the police because people only wanted to vote.
Yes.
The only crime in that
scenario,
footage there was only wanting to vote. That's it. People stood in queues for more than 10 hours yesterday.
People are standing in queues.
People are standing in queues right now. When we should be producing results right now. People are busy voting in a smooth election. The SWAPO Party Youth League statement says it contradicts what the president said.
Saying, yes.
Nothing smooth about this election.
That is worrying. I haven't seen any comments from senior SWAPO officials.
Yeah, in fact, people were saying last night that they ought to hear from the party itself. We don't want to hear from the Youth League. We don't want to hear from these subdivisions of the organization. What is SWAPO's position on these things? I saw a tweet by Joba Mpanda last night saying, amid all these complaints by almost every party, SWAPO are the only ones who seem to be quiet and satisfied with what is happening. Again, it comes to what we said last night here. Is it a question of them having a poor communication thing, or is it that they are satisfied? You could have the poorest communication team in your organization. No team will miss the opportunity to really express themselves on something as serious as this one.
How forthcoming has Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah have in this entire process with regards to communicating to the media directly?
No, you don't. Throughout the process, she's not. When she was a minister, you could call Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah on her phone, and she'll give you comment. As VP, maybe the protocols have changed a little bit, but she has gone into oblivion, or what is it, the expression? She has basically switched off as far as that is concerned. I was impressed a little bit by Sophia Shaningba, who is usually very, very difficult with the media. Of course, we've seen comments where she constantly said she's not friends with the Namibian newspaper, she doesn't like them. But for some reason, for Namibian Sound for argument's sake, she's been forthcoming, surprisingly. She's been forthcoming. You could send her questions, she'll reply. Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, not very much so, and we hope that if she wins this election, that somehow she will have really a proper communication team around. Remember, she's the head of SWAPO now.
Yes, and that's where I was going, because is that not the buffer? Sophia Shaningwa, is that not the reason that she seems to be acting out of character, considering the pre-existing relationship with the media, that part of the reason she's forthcoming this time is so that Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah doesn't have to be?
Yeah. That is also true, but you also, during campaigns, you also don't want to leave communication vacuums.
Yes.
Because if somebody is accusing you of something, for example, you ought to hit back and clarify and contextualize whatever it is that is being said. And SWAPO has been lagging in that sense because not only SWAPO, there are many political parties who only want to talk, even IPC itself, only if they initiate the communication themselves. But when the communication is initiated elsewhere and is brought to them and say, we need your comment, what do you have to say about this? Then you get these funny reactions. You have to be proactive, sometimes to be the first to communicate, but when you are approached by the media, because again, it's not for me.
It's not for you.
It's not for me as a journalist. The information I already have is for the people now out there to understand what is happening. Sometimes it's a very damaging information you need to correct, you need to provide what is true.
Now, IPC was of the opinion, and I'm pretty sure I can say this confidently, that they felt like ideally the election should be set aside given these discrepancies. We know that through Conradi Inc., they sent a strongly worded letter to the ECN. What are your thoughts surrounding that sentiment? I don't know if they still hold the same sentiment. It feels like more of a in the moment type of remark.
Yeah, I think the fact of the matter, Ashwin, is that it's initially when these things of ballots started, lack of ballots started happening, it initially sounded like it was mostly the opposition parties that are affected. And they had every reason in that moment to be furious, to say, why is it that in the SWAPO strongholds there are no lack of ballot papers, but in ours we are experiencing these kind of things. But later when I started hearing that places like Omdaungilo, in the Hangwena region, where SWAPO ought to be giving almost, like Omdaungilo is in Hangwena region where Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah comes from. It's a strong base, and they had also those problems. So then you start to think that maybe this is not necessarily only a matter that is affecting the opposition, it affects everybody. And when you see people like the SWAPO Party Youth League coming out with statements, scathing statements like that against ECN, you start to think that maybe it's not just PR. Maybe it's a genuine conversation that they are also having at party level to say, but what is happening here?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Taivo. The ECN's budget for elections was 430 million Namibian dollars. 430 million Namibian dollars. Does it feel like 430 million Namibian dollars went to use?
I mean, it's difficult to actually even put your fingers on some of these things, to juxtapose these things and say this is the reality and this is what we are getting out of this reality. Because they seem to have lack of, remember their budget was even reviewed and then they got more money because I think the initial allocation was not satisfactory to them. They demanded more and it was given to them.
So they demanded more, it was given to them. When that first batch of polling officers demanded more, they were replaced. Just for context, let's continue.
Absolutely. So when you look at all those things, lack of capacity, there are not enough manpower at polling stations. The devices and everything that is being used is not enough. Where did the money go? What are we using this money for if it cannot produce an efficient and smooth process, actually, if the president's words were correct, but they are not.
They are not.
Yeah.
We're just going to quickly have a look at how things are going with regards to this morning. Some centers have started counting. And of course, this is the problem. Some people are still voting, other people have already started counting. And it's this disparity that we have an issue with. But we're going to start off with Eros Post Office presiding officer.
Morning. My name is Victoria Namibia. I'm a presiding officer here at Nampost Eros. The process of voting so far, everything has gone well. Since it's early in the morning and we still have voters that are about 50 voters that are still queuing up to come and cast their vote, since we have overwhelmed overwhelmed support of voters that came to cast their vote with us, even though most of them, they are not from our constituency, but the process is still going well. We did not have any incident. It seems like voters were ready and they know what they are doing. We just hope that soon we will be able to help them and finish up so that we close our polling stations.
You should see the stamp. You see the stamp. Continue folding it. You should still see the stamp clearly.
Good evening, guys. This is Mr. Pachuana, presiding officer at the Eros Primary School. Currently, as you can see, I'm exhausted, and we are almost at the end of the polling. As we are left with about 60-something applicants still that needs to be assisted. But so far, everything has been going well. Didn't really experience any hiccups, any problems like other pollings. My polling official was smooth, even though we had a little bit of shortage with ballot papers, but we managed to get them all in time, and now we are about to close. Thank you.
Okay, so counting has commenced in certain areas. In the foreign missions, we do have a semblance of the results of the trend of how it's looking right now. This is the first batch of results we can certainly put out. So let's have a look at how it's looking with regards to the foreign missions, starting with the national results. These results, say for just Sweden and Finland, are certainly reflective of the trend currently. So it's foreign missions. 2024 National Assembly votes, total votes 1,762. That's important to highlight because a lot of folks thought, police and soldiers would be included in this. That's not that. This is just a pure vote of foreign mission. So keeping that in mind, SWAPO with 700 votes, IPC 545 votes, AR is stepping into the fray, 254 votes, PDM 112, LPM 52, NEFF 21 votes, RP 17 votes, SWANO 12, NUDO 9, NDP 8, RPD 7, BCP 3, as well as UDF, ADM and COD, as well as UNP and NEFC 2 votes each, and CDV, UPM and NPF 1 vote each. Keeping in mind, this means that SWAPO had 40% of this vote as opposed to 62% that SWAPO had in the previous election. 40% for anyone whose mathematics isn't particularly good is not the halfway mark, far from a majority. So we'll certainly be keeping in mind to see how that looks. Now, the presidential foreign missions results, let's just have a look at those to see how the candidates have performed. Of course, these are very, early times. These are very early results. It's a small number, but we have to pay attention to the trends because in each and every place there's always been a trend ranging from 1989, and it's our job to analyze that. And currently, you can see the significance of the new parties that have entered the fray. We'll get to those results, the presidential results with regards to the foreign missions. But what we can tell you is that Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwa has that by 47%. 47% of that vote, which is also not the
halfway mark.
It's not the halfway mark, far from a majority.
I want to comment on just to add to that. The trend that has been emerging since the special voting in this election is that. And this is where SWAPO seems to be in trouble a little bit because they get the highest votes, but they're not over the 50% mark.
Yes.
So even if the opposition in their fragmentation are earning more votes. So let me just share from my device here what has come through now from the. One polling station in Ngaminus, that is Ludrets, where 600 696 people have voted. Okay, let me take the parliamentary one. 693 voters. SWAPO gets 243 of those.
And then the rest are...
yeah, in fact, just IPC on its own already has more than SWAPO, because IPC has 272, SWAPO has 243. If you add now the rest of the opposition, the ruling party in some of these things is already in trouble. I've seen also in Oshivarongo, surprisingly, because Oshodanjupa is not a bad area for SWAPO. It's actually a very good base for them also. But the early results already that have come out, I've seen 2 results now from Osire and from Oshivarongo itself, and both of them, the ruling party is trailing, and it's just trailing like in the true sense, not
in the true sense,
not if the opposition
if
is
everything's
together.
yes, without a doubt. So we'll certainly be keeping an eye on that. We know the ruling party will be keeping an eye on that. But right now, I want us to just have a look at the reports at the polling stations from this morning, starting with Eros Primary School presiding officer there, and then Otis Daniels' report from Karas.
Thank you. Can we cut this in? Yeah, these still numbers, they are already recorded. Yes. You don't open it up. Empty. So what would happen is we unfold the ballot papers, and then we check if they all have the secret mark. We turn them, we unfold them and turn them like this. The secret mark is on.
So that's the counting currently happening in Karas region. We promised our viewers earlier that Irene Marie would give us an update from Swakopmund. Here it is.
I'm outside Meduletu Community Hall. Earlier today, this morning around 7 o'clock, rumors were that people are still voting here. As you can see behind me, just behind that car in the back, was where the line started earlier today. So it appears that the rumors are untrue. People are not voting at Meduletu anymore. This earlier in the day seemed to be quite an efficient polling station. People in the lines were saying they were waiting 2 or 3 hours to vote, compared to 15 hours at Platzamir, roughly 12 hours at Coastal High, 12 hours at Westside High, more than 12 hours at Westside High actually. So this is where the line went in to go vote. So it appears that voting has concluded at Meduletu Community Hall. Yeah, rumors are untrue. There are still rumors of a couple other polling stations where people allegedly are still voting. So we will check those out. We'll keep you posted. But as for right now, it seems that everybody who wanted to cast their vote at Meduletu Community Hall has done so.
So Irene Marie van der Walt, just debunking a rumor there. She, however, was at the polling stations, as the clip we showed earlier in the day, late into the night in the Rongo region, as people were still casting their votes. Let's have a look at the foreign missions results with regards to the presidential votes. The total was 1,728. Nitumbonandindaitwa 816, Itula just behind the 628, Jobampanda 128, Venani official opposition 73, Bernardo Swatboy 31, Kavekotora on 8, Maj and Karonda 7, Gaobeb at 6, Mukilongo 6, Kumbwa, Shumbwa 3 apiece, Amutenu 2, Thomas 1. So these are the foreign nations' total votes, which means that in the foreign missions, Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah has 47% of the vote, which is the most, but not enough to be a majority.
And that is exactly the problem. But of course, for foreign missions, it was expected, because if you look, for example, the impact that Cape Town had on this on those foreign mission outcomes, London also, I mean the UK, it was huge. I know, for example, because there in the UK and Cape Town, I mean London in particular and Cape Town, the ruling party lost flatly. But in places like New York, SWAPO won. But the problem again has been that they won, but not enough to cross over above the 50% mark. But of course, the dynamics overseas are a bit different. Locally here, we will see later in the day, of course, how the security cluster people who voted in that special vote, how they did it, because the early results already showed that SWAPO was actually in a strong lead, but those numbers were boosted by the local vote here from that special voting day.
Yes.
I think it's just important to reflect quickly. We spoke earlier about SWAPO trailing in Ngaminus, which is in Ludret, and parts of Oshodon Jupa. But if you look at this polling station, Katima Mulilo Urban, 553 people voted. SWAPO got 364 of those, meaning that here the party has really crossed over the 50% mark.
66%.
Absolutely. And 137 for IPC as the second largest party in this polling station, of course, followed by Venani at 24%, I mean 24 votes.
24 votes.
And Joban Panda just a vote below Venani at 23. So so you will be seeing throughout the day those kind of variations.
I think it's safe to say throughout the days, because if people are still voting, we're going to be bringing you results for a while. And just so you keep in mind, at midday, 12 o'clock, we're going to have another Election Watch results show, and then at 5 p.m. we're going to have another Election Watch results show. However, keep in mind, should any significant development happen, we'll be right back on your screen.
That's it.
Yes. Let's have a look at Khomas region. You know, it's at some point it flipped. You know, on one end it was, you know, Khomas privilege. You know what I mean? And then on the other end we realized, whoops, we are all on the same boat.
Good morning, viewers. My name is Michaela Hansen. I am your designated journalist for the Khomas constituency. At the moment, we are at Augustinium, and a quick update, they have not even touched the National Assembly ballots, which means we might only get results later in the day. They are actively counting. Concerning last night, they still allowed voters to come in after 9 p.m. So I don't know how far they are. I'll give you updates throughout the day, but that is it for now. Thank you.
My name is Gaiwane Bishita Jambikambakwa, and I'm the presiding officer at Agostinium Secondary School.
So please tell me around what time did you guys finish with the last voter?
We started counting around like 3:20. Yes, we started counting around 3:20.
And how far are you guys now?
We're not even halfway, if I'm being honest, but they're probably like 40%.
And then you're guys will immediately go on with counting the National Assembly ballots.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I am here at Eros Primary School to find out what the update on the voting polls are, on how far they went, how far they came. Today I'm joined by
Mr. Moses, and that is my surname as well, well known as Ikeshe Nonyanya, Ikulumbatia Seli. And We just want maybe to let you know that no, the process is still going on. The people, they done it very in the middle of the night to vote. You can tell that there was a desire, a zeal, a passion for them to cast their vote. And for the counting, people, they are still counting. And they count the presidential, and they are still going to go to the assembly. And with that, is a lot to count because people, they really come massively. Therefore, we still gonna be, I urge the community members, public members, to be patient enough for the result to come. It will take a long for the counting. And thank you.
All right.
All right, we have another update from Irene Marie from the vault in the Erongo region. It's going to be coming to us just now as that video is loading. What's safe to say right now is polling stations are being told do not close. People are still coming to vote. That means, Toivo, we've actually found ourselves in a second day of voting. There feels like a part of the Constitution was missed there, because from my understanding, if an extension is given with regards to an extra day on voting, that is the president's sole mandate. Yeah. And according to the president, everything's going smoothly.
It's going smoothly. Yeah. So the president declares the election day. That day, to the best of my knowledge, is gazetted. And now, with voting still continuing in day 2,
yes,
which is not gazetted, the president has not pronounced himself, as far as I know. Might be something happened while I'm in studio.
Sure, yes.
I haven't seen anything to the effect that the president has granted the second day of voting for argument's sake. So, and ECN is not communicating. They said, do not, the last communication insofar as this subject is concerned is ECN saying last night, allow people that are coming beyond 9 o'clock to vote. Until when, they didn't say. Whether we have an extension, we don't know. Some people are voting. There are people, if there's a second day of voting, then they ought to make that statement so that others elsewhere that did not vote last night or yesterday can vote. Here in Eros, just close to our studio, there was a very big polling center yesterday. As I drove home last night, that polling center was still, polling station was still very, very full. When I drove past this morning, everybody has packed up, everybody's gone. Whether everybody that was in the queue last night had managed to vote or not, we don't know.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is that if there's a second chance for people to continue voting today, then declare that nationally so that others who are busy crying in their homes right now because they missed out on voting last night can make it to certain stations and vote. There's no communication.
Is this again a mitigation of the international image? Because once you gazette an extra day of voting, that is already a glaring indication of poor planning, a poor planning process with regards to your election. Is this much like the president saying the election being smoothly, having been run smoothly, just one of those bumps we're going to go over? Because now it's a question. You see, a lot of things in life they're not reflected until they create a pattern. Right?
Yes.
So now if we look at the pattern of the ballot boxes, it goes from ballot papers, it goes from them running out yesterday to the questions and issues with regards to the tender.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at the pattern with regards to the president, subject to confirmation, not gazetting as he should an extra election day, as is mandated constitutionally, we go back to the questions that were asked about constitutionally calling this sitting president as opposed to a transitional.
Yes. I mean, that is the issue. For me, President Mbumba, I don't know, he has not really stamped his authority properly. He was declared the 4th president duly declared, supposedly. I mean, some of us still believe that he's acting, but
those are the questions. That's the question I'm asking.
Yeah, but we've been told that those in the powers, they interpreted things their own way. They gave the man the fourth president title, but he ought to then. It doesn't. It's not just a word of mouth. It comes with serious responsibilities. And if you're the president, you ought to tell us: is there a second day of voting? I'll alert you to one situation. The danger with what is happening right now also is that if people in certain areas, in certain strongholds of particular parties are allowed to continue voting, as opposed to the strongholds of other political parties, then you are already influencing outcomes. It has to be a leveled playing field. If this extra voting, of extra hours of voting, declare them across the nation so that everybody can rally their supporters and say, go and vote for me. But if you're only declaring it in areas where certain political parties are losing or where they are strong, this is a problem.
There is an issue. One last report from Miriam and Marie van der Walt before we say goodbye.
Okay, so it is still windy here in Swakopmund from the exact same spot where I gave you a windy goodbye yesterday evening. The rumors are untrue. This is Matutura Primary School, 2 polling stations behind me. Rumors are untrue. No votes being cast here. So it seems that for the most part, Swakopmund has concluded voting. We're still moving to different polling stations to make sure that that statement is 100% true. But for Matutura Primary School, where the rumors are that people are still voting, those rumors are untrue.
So that's been Election Watch. For now, we're back at midday, 12 o'clock. Aina Raiza Kweyo and Jereen Hoff are going to be taking over there. Then at 5 p.m., Matthias was at that PDM press conference. We'll be joined by Diana Master as they seek hope to be bringing the Namibian nation results. Saving that, we'll certainly be giving you all the updates, and hopefully those updates will be stemming from the people commissioned to give us that specific information, which is the Electoral Commission of Namibia. Toivo Jabela, Ashwin Berry, #Namibia has decided 2024.